Star Trek The Next Generation renewed for a second season, fandom held its breath not knowing what to expect from the show. Meanwhile, drama behind the scenes would continue and lead up to a major change at the end of Season 2. One that would save Star Trek and propel TNG at warp speed into becoming one of the most beloved Star Trek series of all time. Hello and welcome to Backtrek, a web series that focuses on the background information on any given topic in Star Trek. In this, the continuation of our look into Star Trek's history, we'll be taking a look behind the scenes of the making of Season 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation. I hope you enjoy. Although renewed, there were many problems that needed to be sorted out before production could really begin on the second season. Primary of which was in regards to the main cast of the show. Season 1 had seen Tasha Yar, the Enterprise's security chief, killed by a blob monster, and Gates McFadden, who played Dr. Beverly Crusher, had left due to Maurice Hurley's personal dislike of the amazing actress. Well, to solve the Tasha problem, they would simply make Wharf chief of security and have him trade his red shirt for a gold one, and all would be well. This was actually a brilliant move for the series, as it allowed Wharf to have a valid function and participate in the show more actively. Wharf had been an interesting character in Season 1, and Michael Dorn played the part very well. But in that first season, Wharf tended to be floating around from station to station, seemingly not really having a career path to follow. Another floater was, of course, Wesley Crusher, who Gene Roddenberry saw as the ultimate representation of humanity's future. And Gene, thinking that Wesley was what helped bring in the children to Star Trek, felt he should have somewhat of a more permanent position on the bridge himself. And so, Gene decided to move LaForge to engineering as chief engineer of the ship, while Wesley would take the helm, a position every kid wanted in Star Trek, or so, again, at least Gene thought. The truth, though, was that fandom hated the character of Wesley Crusher and saw him more of a joke rather than a viable member of the crew. McFadden's departure had been on bad terms, and Hurley was determined to get an actress in the show that not only could he get along with, but would also embody the qualities of Dr. McCoy, and so Dr. Catherine Pulaski was born. Pulaski was older than Crusher, and instead of having a sexually charged chemistry with the good captain, was meant to be more of a mentor or a friend to Picard, someone Jean-Luc could approach with emotionally charged issues and have an honest, open-hearted conversation with, helping him make whatever decision of the week needed to be made. To play this new doctor, Diana Muldaur was brought in. Muldaur had already played two separate roles in Star Trek The Original Series, in the episodes Return to Tomorrow and Is There in Truth No Beauty, and she herself was very excited over the role. But once filming began, problems quickly began to appear. First, Muldaur wasn't impressed by the technology that went into each episode as a focal point. She believed that the real story should all be character-driven, and that any technology should just be used as props in the show. She was also from what could be termed as a different era of acting, wherein an actor learned their lines, delivered their lines, and moved on. No time for jokes, no time for fun. Of course, this was an immediate problem, as the remaining cast members of the show had bonded during the first season, and really enjoyed having fun in between takes with each other, but Muldaur would have none of it. And so Diana would never actually bond with the cast of TNG, always feeling like an outsider, and I think this shows in her performance. It wasn't that she was bad as the character, it was more of this sense of coldness she brought to it, a coldness that was never a part of Dr. McCoy's character. And so, when she ended up talking to people, instead of the loving, jovial warmth she was meant to display, she instead came off as cold and condescending, and this in turn would turn off the majority of the fan base from that character. With the main cast all sorted out for the season, full production began. But again, behind the scenes, there were many major issues. The main being the power struggle that was happening before everyone's eyes. Gene Roddenberry was still around, but he had grown sicker and as a result ended up being at the studio less and less. And so he had appointed Maurice Hurley, head writer of the show, as his unofficial showrunner, expecting Hurley to run the show as he would and report directly to Gene himself. For his part, Hurley seemed to relish the new power he had, illusionary or not, over the show, and would oftentimes make decisions that would end up hindering the various episodes, believing he would know how Gene would react. Meanwhile, the truth was, he was taking Gene's ideals to an extreme. This would be a problem that would infuriate most of the cast and crew of the show. Meanwhile, the real heir to the show, Rick Berman, would begin to assert himself more in this season's production, after gaining a large amount of confidence after the success of the first season episode Conspiracy, which had been hailed as one of the best episodes of Season 1 of TNG by the fanbase. Conspiracy was an episode Hurley had fought hard against being made, and thankfully he had lost that one to Berman. But Berman himself also had a problem. With Gene still being involved, and Hurley being the representation of Gene's authority, a huge gray area had been created when it came to who was actually in charge of the show, and this problem would not be solved until the end of the season. Season 2 had originally been planned to start off with the introduction of the Borg, but the 1988 writers' strike was preventing the work from commencing on any scripts at all, and so everyone just had to wait. As a result, production didn't begin on Season 2 until mid-August, and in order to get production rolling as soon as possible, Hurley merely picked a script from the failed Phase 2 Star Trek series that was virtually complete as the show's premiere episode, which was now titled The Child. Because of this choice, however, the Borg would not see their introduction into Star Trek until much later in the season with the episode Q Who, an episode which most of fandom agrees was the best of Season 2. During the hiatus due to the writer's strike, Jonathan Frakes had actually grown a beard, and at a convention he and Roddenberry were attending, Roddenberry said his beard had an appropriately nautical look, and thus the beard became a permanent part of Riker's character. And because of Riker's beard, the term growing the beard has since become a term for when a show starts to turn good, a reverse of the jumping the shark term coined because of the TV show Happy Days. The Enterprise bridge set was modified for the second season. The access panels on the bridge's port and starboard sides were changed from a wood to a beige fabric. In addition, all three of the command chairs were replaced with new versions. Picard's new chair had the panels on the armrests permanently opened, and 2 additional small seats added to the sides of Riker and Troy's chairs were removed in favor of a transparent bench. The con and ops station chairs were also replaced with newer swiveling upright chairs, and Lieutenant Worf's previous station, known as Emergency Manual Override and Environment, was changed to Mission Operations and Engineering. A new sickbay set was also constructed, featuring portions of the set from the first season, combined with a new intensive care ward, freeing up the set that had doubled as the observation lounge, and that set would get 2 large view screens added to it. The 10 Forward Lounge was also designed and built for this season. Hurley had intended the second season to end with a cliffhanger, again in regards to the Borg, but this would also be changed. Due to budgetary overruns during the season, Paramount demanded that the finale have only a 3-day shooting schedule in order for them to recover some of the costs that they had lost. This of course prevented the idea of a cliffhanger surrounding the Borg, and that idea would be put on hold until the finale of the 3rd season. Instead, the episode Shades of Grey was written as a clip show and would become a huge flop for the series. Whoopi Goldberg, who had been a fan of Star Trek the original series, citing Lieutenant Uhura as one of her childhood idols, was immediately snatched up by the show to be part of the cast as a reoccurring character once they found out she had interest in being in the show, and the addition of Guinan as a character fits well with the series, displaying the sort of personality traits that Pulaski had originally been intended to show. Season 2 proceeded on from episode to episode, while the in-house power struggle continued. With the turnover of so many writers and production staff, TNG clearly had a problem, and that problem was traced down to one man, Maurice Hurley. And at the end of the season, the powers that be made the decision to let Hurley go, and give Berman the power he actually needed to get the show on track. You see, although Season 2 was much better than Season 1, fans were still not impressed with it. It was clear to the powers that be that Roddenberry had lost touch with the fanbase and what the fanbase actually wanted. Hurley was never a people person, doing and saying whatever he felt was necessary to keep Gene's vision alive. But yet, not being a fan of science fiction, or ever writing for it before, he had no real grasp of what those Gene ideals truly meant. It may have been a lack of self-confidence that kept Hurley clutching on so tightly to Gene's so-called rules, but it would also be this clutching that in the end would be his own undoing, at least in regards to Star Trek. And once he left, Star Trek The Next Generation would grow immensely in popularity. The characters would begin to pop off the page on every script, coming to life in a far more human way, with interesting adventures and stories that would finally see fandom boldly going where no one had gone before. Thank you for watching today's episode of Backtrek. What did you think of Season 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation? Are you glad that Hurley was let go from the series? Well, leave your comments in the section below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. When we next return to this Star Trek historical overview series, we'll be taking a look at the making of Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. And in the meantime, I'll be doing some exciting regular episodes of Backtrek, one of which will be on the Season 2 episode Q Who, so hope to see you then. If you want to help the channel have a glass of Romulan ale in 10 forward, then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Live long and prosper.